Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. Debate Day is here. The 2020 rematch of President Biden and former President Trump. The 2024 election season kickoff happening earlier than ever in June. Senator Joe Manchin, now an independent, previews the head-to-head.
A lot could happen. It could be fireworks as we know, or it could be basically two people who I want to see that are quality people who could be leading this country. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for the leader of the free world to show the rest of the world that we can lead and we can come together.
And Microsoft AI CEO Mustafa Suleyman, a leading force in artificial intelligence, says we're not all competitors.
This is just stop it. We have to stop framing everything as an adversarial race.
Those big conversations today, plus Walgreens. It was booted out of the Dow and now closing a number of locations. What's happening to convenience stores?
He's saying 3 times a week, I go zero. I order everything.
How old are you?
Old, but not as old as you.
It's Thursday, June 27th. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Good morning and welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We're live at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Melissa Lee along with Joe Kernen. Becky is off today. Andrew is at the Aspen Ideas Festival. He will join us later on in the show.
You got your notebook?
Yes, I have a notebook. I write notes every morning.
I see that. Well, then I don't know what you do. Becky does that too. She writes down all the stuff the guests are
I have
saying.
it by date.
Just go to a blank page.
Okay. Are you going to try and guess a number or something?
No.
Is this like a game?
I'm going to tell you what's on today's Squawk Planner. What do you think I was?
Just threw my pen.
Oh, don't throw that down. Do not throw that. I take notes.
Whatever's in the Squawk Planner is already in my notebook.
Oh. I take notes during Fast Money.
You don't.
I do want to do. Just okay. At home, if she's not going to play along, fine. On today's Squawk Planner, several economic data points of note. You got GDP revisions, weekly jobless claims, May durable goods, all due at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. May pending home sales will come out at 10 a.m. And what about earnings? On the earnings front, we'll hear from retail pharmacy chain Walgreens. I've told you that all my movie references are too old, but it used to be if I went into Walgreens, it was like once every couple of years. Mm-hmm. Now I walk in and it's Mr. Kernen. Hey, remember The Graduate, Mr. Gladstone? He walked into he's been at the hotel so many times with Mrs. Robinson that he's got a fake name, Mr. Gladstone, Mr. Gladstone, Mr. Everybody knows him. That's me now at Walgreens, which is a sad commentary. Also, I'm not going to tell you what I buy there. You can just use your imagination.
I assume gummy bears.
Gummies, not those kind of gummies. But I mean, the front of the store and the back of the store. They call the retail part the front.
Right.
The back gets plenty of business now.
Pharmacy, yeah.
From
weight loss drugs.
Not weight loss. I have not. This is all natural.
Oh, no. I mean, not for you, but in general.
For other people.
In general, yes.
Yeah. I've thought about it, but I haven't done it yet.
Shares of Micron sharply lower. Earnings and revenue both beat analyst estimates, but investors were seemingly looking to see a bigger impact from AI in the company's forecast. The current quarter guidance was in line with the average analyst projection, but fell short of some analysts' loftier expectations. Additionally, Micron said demand has been sluggish in some of its traditional markets, including PCs and smartphones. Before today's drop, the stock had been up 67% year to date. Of course, they make the high bandwidth memory, HBM, which is part of the AI trade. And they said they're mostly sold out for full year 2025. But some analysts are saying, others, like TSM, said that they're fully sold out. So
should I still look at it as just commodity memory type stuff, or is it got to have proprietary stuff now? Micron.
You should have proprietary stuff. I mean,
no,
otherwise
Micron
you're going to trade. It's
Micron always
cyclical.
Was
DRAM's, that business is completely cyclical.
Right. That's what I mean. But these
but
are,
now it's escaping that.
All right, because the stock's doing much better. Over the years, it was feast or famine.
Right.
Depending on
solely on the price of DRAM.
Exactly.
Yeah. Meantime, bank stress test results. The Federal Reserve said the biggest banks operating in the U.S. would be able to withstand a severe recession scenario while maintaining their ability to lend to consumers and corporations. The stress scenario included U.S. unemployment surging to 10%, commercial real estate values plunging 40%, and housing prices falling 36%. In that hypothetical scenario, banks could absorb nearly $685 billion in losses and still exceed minimum capital requirements. And now, of course, the wait is on for banks to outline any sort of plans about capital allocation, share buybacks, dividends, et cetera. The Fed said, probably won't happen until Friday after 4:30 p.m., but others say it's not going to happen until Basel III is ironed out. And we know the details.
Those numbers sound,
horrible, right?
Well, where we are today, it sounds like that could never happen. But we know never say never. And we had a pandemic.
Right.
We got some. I don't know. They're somewhere in the world. They're vaccinating people about bird flu, which when they try to scare you, they say the mortality rate could be 50% for bird flu. And I don't know. That's probably very unlikely. We went through. Remember before COVID, the reason we initially didn't think COVID necessarily would be like that was because we had been through MERS, SARS,
exactly.
We had been through so many other
Viral,
possible Ebola, so many other possible pandemics that when that one really did take hold, it was a shock. And now we're ready to accept the possibility of another one. But hopefully bird flu is just as unlikely as it was the first time. But what else? How else do we get to 10% war? I don't know, a dirty bomb. It's hard to imagine 10%.
It could be a massive cyber attack on our grid.
Be a massive cyber attack that could do a terrible black swans that we're talking about. But we don't think 10%. We think.
Look at the impact that one cyber attack had, on CDK, on the auto industry.
Right.
They can't they have to write pen and paper. But on a grander scale, obviously that's small. But you can see how an industry can be paralyzed if you attack the right sort of common threads, the right platforms that they depend on.
Banks are important, but the kind of things that we're talking about that would get us to 10% unemployment, I'm more worried about those events than whether the banks are able to weather. It is important. You don't want the financial system collapsing.
That doesn't help.
But the type of scenarios that you're talking about have their own set of scary things.
We'll have a whole bunch of other worries.
Yeah, we will. And we do. And I do worry. I worry about the guys up in that can't get back. What are we going to do? Send a spacer? That's it. What if Boeing has to ask Elon to bring those guys back guys and gals from the ISS? That's sad. Boeing facing new whistleblower claims. A subcontractor mechanic alleges retaliation by Spirit Aerosystems after he raised concerns about work that he observed on the 787 Dreamliner. He said he witnessed holes being improperly drilled on the plane's bulkhead in a way that deviated from Boeing's manufacturing specifications. Boeing said in a statement that the claims were reported previously and thoroughly investigated and posed no safety concerns. And regarding the whistleblower's claims of retaliation, Boeing said it isn't involved in the personnel decision of subcontractors. A Spirit spokesperson said leadership is looking into the matter and encourages all employees with concerns to come forward with the company's protection. And I'm not even going to reference the last couple of whistleblowers that maybe are not with us at this point.
They are not with us.
They maybe are, but maybe,
a
couple are not with us, which I'm sure is nothing more than coincidence, hopefully, right?
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Walgreens just out with its quarterly numbers. Drugstore operator reported adjusted profit of 63 cents a share. That is 5 cents below consensus estimates. Although revenue did beat forecasts, Walgreens is also lowering full-year guidance, now seeing fiscal 2024 profit at $2.80 to $2.95 compared to prior guidance of $3.20 to $3.35. CEO Tim Wentworth told CNBC that expectations of stronger consumer demand have not played out and that pharmacy industry trends continue to be challenging. That stock is down 4% immediately on this news.
Dow it is being affected somewhat. How much?
Sure.
Walgreens had a new low.
It's down 9%.
About 9%. If you say you're shuttering a
significant share of its stores in the United States.
More than half of its 8,600 stores. Is that what they mean? More than half?
Significant share would imply, I would think it's more than half.
Walgreens to shutter a significant share of its roughly 8,600 stores. Also cut its stake in a primary care provider, but also missed on profits, lowered guidance.
Yes, there was nothing good out of this report.
I can't do it all, obviously. There are a lot.
In terms of his trips to the drugstore, we're talking. He's saying 3 times a week, I go zero. I order everything.
How old are you? You're like 30.
Old.
You're like 30.
But not as old as you.
No, you're not.
But everybody orders
Stuff
things
happens.
online. So the front of the store
is that what it is?
suffers.
But online, we just read in the journal how much more expensive it is to do it through the mail. That was the story yesterday, right?
Well, it's still being done, though, even if it's more expensive.
People go, I just can't imagine not having a neighborhood Walgreens. Can you, though?
Well, the boots part of the business which they acquired, that was an acquisition that never worked out well.
Greeting cards, baby powder, deodorant, toothpaste.
What kind of margin do you think there is on deodorant?
Front of the store stuff is
store.
good. It's not good. I guess it's not anymore with Walmart and all those other.
Right. Think of all the other places you can get these things from. Down 12% right now.
That's
WBA.
Unbelievable. That's a real. I need more details on what a significant share means.
I'm sure the conference call will be interesting. CEO Tim Wentworth telling CNBC that expectations of a stronger consumer demand of consumers have not played out. Pharmacy industry trends continue to be challenging. So there's a lot of things going on with this stock. It's got a lot of. It mentioned also a change in marketplace dynamics.
Yeah, sure.
Which I think
it's true, but this is not good, and it. My memory isn't what it used to, because we made the joke. Walgreens booted from the Dow, so it's not in the Dow. And the other company that we said passed $2 trillion in market cap replaced Walgreens boots, Amazon, in the Dow. So, yeah, we're bringing it together. Yeah, that's, and you know what? It was February when Amazon went in. That looks prescient at this point. You don't need this. You don't need this stuff. What's the market cap now on this? I haven't looked. Although that is a new low market cap all the way down. Oh my, is that right? Did you see?
I have $13 billion.
Oh God. Yeah.
$13 billion.
That's not a Dow component.
Watch CVS shares, by the way, are also sliding in sympathy, down by 2.6%. Clearly not as bad as the 16% decline. But all the things that Walgreens is talking. Those are concerns for this industry. So it really underscores the dynamic of the weaker consumer, of all the other competitive forces in terms of online, in terms of reimbursements, everything, all rolled up in one.
Sort of, also, it's a different world. I mean, compared to where in the old, remember Sears and Kmart and Woolworth, and that used to be a staple of America. And Walgreens, kind of the same thing. And it's, the Amazons of the world are having a huge impact on and you either keep up like Walmart and Target or you don't with this.
Cheese will be next.
Coming up next on Squawk Pod, one of the most influential leaders in artificial intelligence. Microsoft AI CEO Mustafa Suleyman is at the Aspen Ideas Festival with our Andrew Ross Sorkin, and he has a lot of ideas about humanity's future with computers.
The economics of information are about to radically change because we're going to reduce the cost of production of knowledge to zero marginal cost.
That's all coming up after this. You're listening to Squawk Pod from CNBC, today with Joe Kernen and Melissa Lee in New York, and Andrew Ross Sorkin on the ground at the Aspen Ideas Festival in Colorado.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. We are here at the Aspen Ideas Festival, where yesterday I spoke with the head of Microsoft's artificial intelligence unit. Mustafa Suleyman is probably the most important person now in the AI world at Microsoft, of course, in major partnership with OpenAI. But I asked him about chatbot hallucinations, because we talk about it all the time, and whether he believes he could ever really take us inside the black box to actually understand how AI works.
I can't, in a way that would satisfy you. But I also can't explain why you chose to wear a blue shirt this morning. I can explain very little about who you or I are. The requirement for explanation is, I think, again, a little bit of a human bias. When I ask you to explain why you had scrambled eggs for breakfast this morning, you will creatively imagine an explanation in hindsight. And depending on your mood and the context that you're in and the other associated metadata of the explanation, you're probably going to say it slightly differently. And it's not clear that it was entirely causal. There is some basis in reality for it, but this one-to-one mapping is a very hyper-rational imposition on the way that we think as humans. In fact, we just don't really operate like that. We operate, I think, far more by association.
Should we worry about that? though? I mean, should we worry that it's one thing to not understand ourselves. It's another to not understand how the computer gets, most people think that all of this is just a big mathematical problem, right? 2 + 2 should always equal 4. If it's not equaling 4, we need to understand what's wrong with the computer, right?
Yeah, that's just not how sort of human reasoning and culture actually works, in my opinion. Human reasoning works as a result of behavioral observations. When you consistently do the same thing over and over again, I gain trust. You become more reliable. When you tell me that you are unsure about something, and then I look back and it turns out that your uncertainty was a correct assessment of that outcome, that uncertainty gives me reassurance, right? So I learn to trust you and to interact with you by observation. And I think that that's actually how we all operate in relation to one another, is how we produce culture and society. And that's how we'll treat these models.
So, guys, we're going to have to start thinking about these models really very much in human dimensions, not necessarily in mathematical or sort of thinking about them as a computer. I also asked him about the issue of intellectual property, a big one here at the Aspen Ideas Festival, where there's so many authors and other creators, and especially given the reports that OpenAI and others have trained off of transcripts from YouTube videos. Here's what he said about the economics of all of that around content.
The economics of information are about to radically change because we're going to reduce the cost of production of knowledge to zero marginal cost. And this is just a very difficult thing for people to intuit. But in 15 or 20 years' time, we will be producing new scientific cultural knowledge at almost zero marginal cost. It will be widely open sourced and available to everybody. And I think that is going to be, a true inflection point in the history of our species, because what are we collectively as an organism of humans other than an intellectual production engine? We produce knowledge. Our science makes us better. And so what we really want in the world, in my opinion, are new engines that can turbocharge discovery and invention.
We're going to have to get on the couch, because if you really start to think about it, Joe, and Melissa, I mean, who are we? If we are content creators in many ways, and if the marginal cost of content is going to zero, well, there's lots of industries, of course, that are going to shapeshift as a result. I want to show you one other piece of sound, if I could. Yesterday, the European Union charged Microsoft with breaching antitrust rules by bundling its Teams and Office products. Meanwhile, Apple now saying that it's delaying the launch of AI features in Europe, given the regulatory environment. So I asked Mustafa about the concentration of power in artificial intelligence among the big tech companies.
It makes me very anxious. The reality is, everywhere you look, we see rapid concentrations, whether it's in news media and the power of the New York Times, the Financial Times, the Economist, the great news organizations, or whether it's in cities, the concentration of power around a few big metropolitan elite cities, or whether it's in technology companies. And the practical fact is that over time, power compounds. Power has a tendency to attract more power because it can generate the intellectual resources and the financial resources to be successful and outcompete in open markets. So while on the one hand, it feels like an incredibly competitive situation between Microsoft, Meta, Google, and so on, it clearly is also true that we're able to make investments that are just unprecedented in corporate history.
Can you speak to what I imagine is a friendly, or it could turn into a frenemy situation with OpenAI, which is you have this partnership now, but you guys are developing your own tech as well, your own AI, and in fact, they helped you get to the lead. I want to read you something. This is Semaphore. I thought it was actually a fascinating analogy. Do you know this?
Of course.
Okay. With the Tour de France coming up, here's a bike analogy that I think everyone will understand. OpenAI and Microsoft are in a two-person breakaway, far ahead from the peloton. By working together now, they might be able to keep the lead. If either goes solo, they may fall both behind. Both companies have to think about their finish line strategy when they will have to ditch the other. You're on the bike.
Again, I don't buy the metaphor that there is a finish line. This is another false frame. It's actually very much also true in the context of our race with China. We're going head to head. It's zero sum. There will be a finish line, and when we cross it, we will have an AGI, and if we get it 3 years before them, we'll be able to disempower them. Like, this is just, stop it. We have to stop framing everything as an adversarial race. Like, it is true that we have ferocious competition with them. They are an independent company. We don't own or control them. We don't even have any board members. So they do entirely their own thing, but we have a deep partnership. I'm very good friends with Sam, have huge respect and, trust and faith in what they've done. And that's how it's going to roll for many, many years to come.
We went deep with Mustafa on so many issues. You can watch that interview online if you want to watch it in its entirety. One of the first interviews that Mustafa has now given in his new role at Microsoft. Of course, prior to that, he was one of the co-founders of DeepMind at Google back in 2010. He's an OG, if you will, in the AI space, then started Inflection along with Reid Hoffman, which then, of course, got spun effectively inside now of Microsoft. AI here is the talk of the town, as it seems to be just about everywhere you go.
Andrew, I during that one part of the conversation, I briefly thought about us. Content is worth zero. But what he described, if you were listening closely, was really the singularity, the Kurzweilian singularity, where mankind, where machines now have, 1 billion times the collective knowledge of mankind for the last million years, whatever it is, however long we've been. When machines get to that point, I don't know if we need to do anything for new knowledge and for new content. And I'm hoping it's a positive, because I want to be some kind of cyborg that, I don't know, is hard, maybe download my neurons to something that can last. We may just miss. That may be like 100 years from now.
I'll give you one. You'll appreciate this. We had a piece of the conversation was actually about the election and elections and the role of AI in politics in the future.
You just can't help yourself. You just can't help yourself, can you?
No. But this was interesting. Because Mustafa was saying, look, that he thinks that AI should be completely disconnected from politics and elections in the future. And the way they've set it up now in 2024, it's going to be set up that way. And he's hoping it'll be set up that way in 2028. But then he said, come 2030, come 2032, or even farther out, we are all going to have our own agents, our own bots that are ours. And he said, just like some people, want their pets to have sort of humanhood, if you will, that he thinks that bots, your agent, may actually get involved in politics on your behalf. And so even efforts that are made to separate politics and elections from AI, it'll be very difficult, because the democracy, if you will, people will want the agents involved in that conversation. So it gets very interesting. Talking about the singularity, it gets very interesting very quickly the farther out you go.
Will any of us be happy? Did you ask him that? Can we, I'm happy now, but you're describing a horrible future to me. Right? Aren't you?
We're let's just be hopeful. I'm going with hope. I'm crossing my fingers.
Well, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, though.
Next on Squawk Pod, we've got a rare family sit-down with West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin and his daughter, former pharma CEO Heather Manchin. She weighs in on what politicians don't get about business.
We have $1 trillion industry that no one on Capitol Hill knew what it was or what they did, and they still barely do.
And we'll get into the 2024 race, Senator Manchin on the former president's Veep stakes.
I'm partial to governors. I'm partial to anyone who had executive experience. They've got to make a decision. A governor can't be a Democrat or Republican. Governor's got to be governor of their state.
We'll be right back. This is Squawk Pod.
Stand by, Joe. His mic, cue.
You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I'm Joe Kernen, along with Andrew Ross Sorkin. That's it, Andrew. It's just us, is it?
Just the two of us.
Is it 6 a.m.? It's 6 a.m. out there, isn't it right now?
6 a.m. 6 a.m.
And you are at
8 a.m. in New York, 6 a.m. in Aspen.
Exactly. It's 2 hours. I remember that. And, it gets confusing with daylight, say who does it, who doesn't. But you're at the Aspen Ideas Festival. Becky's off today. Melissa, it's something I said. I don't think, no, she had something to do, Andrew. So it's just us among our top stories. What do you think of this Walgreens stuff? Do you believe this, Sorkin? A significant number probably isn't as much as we thought. They're looking at a quarter of the stores to evaluate those. But I was wondering, do you have a good a feel for exactly what happened here? Is it changing that much? Do you get all your drugs through the mail or online or something?
I think people are getting them in the mail. They're getting them online. And by the way, there's the big issue of just how much theft there's been at these stores and what can be on the shelves. That's a big issue.
Because it's a pain to go in, and you have to get someone to get the slightest thing. Razor blades, Advil.
Meantime, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on here at the Aspen Ideas Festival, where I'm joining you again live this morning. NBC Universal News Group, the media partner here. And then later today, Peter Thiel, and we're going to bring you that conversation on the air tomorrow, of course, after the debates, and maybe get some of a preview about the debates from Peter Thiel as well. He's tried, I think, to stay out of politics this round, but I'm hoping maybe he'll give us a little bit of taste of what's going on in his head about it all.
He may be one of those quiet guys, Andrew, right? I mean, he doesn't say much anymore. And why, does anyone need that? When you're a tech guy, I mean, did he really need what happened the last time he put his foot in, or put his toe in the water of politics? I mean, what did he get out of that exactly, do you think? What's the upside for speaking up or doing anything? That's why I think those, Sonnenfeld's piece. I mean, did any of those guys he was talking about, are any of them on the record giving money to Biden?
And that's the issue. I think you're not seeing a lot of people giving on either side this round. And that was one of the points I made, obviously, when...
Yeah, but he would say, well, normally 70% are Republicans. In the past, they've always... So he would say, well, they never gave money to Democrats. He'd be able to say that. But I think the real story was that these guys have customers and employees that are on both sides of what we're going to be watching tonight. And it's crazy to poke the bear on either side if you're a CEO.
I think that's true to some extent. And, we're going to have Senator Manchin here along with his daughter, Heather, of course, former CEO of Mylan. So we can talk to her about being a CEO and being outspoken about politics. I think it's a little bit different in that it's unclear whether if you were to say something about President Biden, whether you would worry genuinely that there'd be retribution about saying something about him in the same way. And I think that dynamic is a real issue.
No, but Andrew, I'm shocked when a CEO, if you back Biden, you're also backing some of his policies. And you heard Lonsdale the other day say you put in that unrealized wealth tax and you're going to destroy an entire industry. So there are other reasons policy-wise, but there's no denying that Trump is the first time in history there's ever been a candidate that can inspire such, I don't know what you call it. I mean, you get Twitter. You see what people say. I mean, it is, he has a different kind of candidate, and the media has said that he is a qualitatively different candidate across the board for supporters and for haters.
Right. We're going to talk about that, by the way. Senator Manchin, who just arrived, Senator Manchin and his daughter are going to be here in just a little bit, and we're going to talk about all of this.
He's a patriot. He knows that. And we saw him in Davos, and you were pulling on one side of him, I was pulling on the other side, and it looked like we were going to split him in two. But give my best to both, to Joe and Heather.
Joining us right now, we got a lot to talk about. By the way, we should also talk about Walgreens because Heather has a view on all this. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin is here. Recently announced he's switched his registration from Democrat to Independent. Heather Manchin is here at the brush. She's Senator Manchin's daughter, the former CEO of Mylan and the founder and CEO of Americans Together, with aims to get political donors to back centrist candidates. Good morning.
Good morning.
To both of you.
Good morning, Joe.
It's great to have you here.
Hey, Joe. Joe, you look good for 50. I can't believe it. What do you do exactly? What's your secret?
I've been set free, Joe. I've been set free. I'm an independent, set free.
Yeah, trying to promote those democratic ideals. Now that must be a lot easier for you. You don't.
Just good American ideals. That's all.
That's it.
You guys woke up early for us, so we appreciate it. On debate day, and I'm hoping both of you can expound on what you think we're going to see tonight and how important or not, maybe, depending on how you view it, tonight really is.
Well, Andrew, what I would like to see, not what I think I'm going to see, I have no idea. A lot could happen. It could be fireworks as we know, or it could be basically two people who I want to see that are quality people who could be leading this country. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for the leader of the free world to show the rest of the world that we can lead and we can come together. So I know as divisive and as our country is right now, and people picking sides, it's almost like a sporting event.
Right.
It's not. It's not.
You've been a Biden man, though, in the past.
I've known Joe Biden for a long time. We've been friends. I want Joe Biden to be the old Joe Biden I've known. He's gone too far to the left. And we've had this conversation, he and I. I'd like to see him come back to the centrist Joe Biden that he has been, being able to make a deal with both sides, never looking at the other side as your enemy, but your friend who has a different idea. But now it's at the point they're just going at, if you're a D, you're supposed to hate R's. If you're an R, you're supposed to hate D's. And I said, I can't take it anymore. I like both sides. I want to work with both sides.
Okay, real quick, because then I want to ask Heather a question about how CEOs think about this for a second. But could you see yourself voting for the former President Trump?
I have a hard time, and I'll tell you why. The orderly transfer, to me, we've been able to, for 250 years, navigate through really some tough times as a country. And I was asked, what would our founding fathers think of us today? They might be amazed that we're still here, 250, or they'd be so proud that we've been able to weather the storm by self-governing, people governing themselves. But with that, orderly transfer of power and rule of law, the two things, the staple anchors that we have. And former President Trump, basically, I'm afraid, would challenge those to where he doesn't accept orderly transfer of power or protecting the rule of law and the judicial system. That's all we've got. That makes us so much different than any place else in the world.
Does that mean your mind is made up there, or is there something you could say tonight that would change it?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Tonight's a big night. We're going to see what happens.
Heather, speak to this, though, because you're a former CEO of Mylan. You've spent a lot of time in the CEO community, and we've been having lots of conversations, even in the past week or two, about whether CEOs are supposed to speak out, not speak out, whether this year is somehow different than in the past. Jeff Sonnenfeld had a piece in the New York Times that went around. We've been debating on the air. What do you think?
I think it's like everything else. We have gotten to such a point that it's been so weaponized to have an opinion. I think that what makes your life compromise, common ground, getting around, and CEOs do it every day. You've got to find ways to navigate your way through the public markets, through your industry. Right. So we should be able to sit down with administrations and with senators and Congress and have discussions about what needs to happen on a policy. And we've made it so personal that if you have to either like everything or nothing, and you're pitted against a side. So I feel for CEOs today. It's like I can't comment on a policy, good or bad, because then that means I'm endorsing everything about everybody.
But how much of it today is a worry about what the customer is going to think, and how much of it is a worry about what the former president might think if he becomes the president, right? I mean, part of it is that there's sort of the customer issue, and then there's the shareholder issue, and then there's, by the way, what government could do to you. For sure.
That's the problem. So not only are we weaponizing it, but our politicians are weaponizing it. So when you hear people lash out to want to call out a position that a company is taking or a CEO vocalizes, right, I think the personalization is what's got to end. We've got to have respectable conversations with each other again, and not hold each other accountable to words.
What do you think as somebody in politics?
Well, let me just say this, that I don't hear, for the last decade, I have not heard anyone saying, enough, this is good for the country. Let's do this is good for the country. We know that we've got to fix the border. We know that we've got to tackle this debt. Almost $35 trillion of debt. We cannot sustain this. This will be the first time since World War II that we're going to be paying more on interest to satisfy our debt than we are to defend our country. It makes no sense at all. And we're digging ourselves a hole. So we know how to fix this. But the bottom line is they'd rather basically blame you. Right. The system works, the duopoly of the businesses, of the Democrat and Republican. Right. If I can blame you, I look better than you.
Okay, but hold on. You just made 2 points about immigration, or the border, really, and about the debt and deficits.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would look at President Biden and say, he's not scored on those fronts.
Well, let me just put it this way. As far as on the border, I've been saying from day one, we've got to fix that border. You've got to basically control the border. Right. You can't have pardon at the border and catch and release everything that went on. He can say from defending himself, President Biden, is that out of the compassion he had for people who are displaced around the world after COVID, right. But he never it went too far. We got overrun. Right. Now he can say also, but the Republicans, we had a bill, a bipartisan bill. And James Langford, who's a good friend of mine, I wasn't sure James could ever get there, but he did. And then he walked away from him because President Trump. So who's the worst? You follow me? That's what politics. You want to know what's wrong with politics? We could fix the gun problem. We could fix, in 2013, we had a bill. We had the Manchin-Toomey bill as far as in 2013 on background checks. Right. Politics prevented that from happening.
Joe? Yeah, Senator, you can cherry pick different policies, and you can take the politician out of West Virginia, but you can't take West Virginia out of the politician, I don't think. You had problems with Biden's energy approach. There's just no two ways about it. And now we're seeing it come home to roost, and poor GM and a lot of these companies that are, they're rushing this transition. And so that's one. I mean, you got to put that in Trump's. You got to put your check mark in Trump's policies as far as that goes. Now, in character issues, you got any problem with influence peddling and what was going on? You have no doubt you're sure that Joe Biden didn't benefit whatsoever from any of the stuff that was going on around the world with his son. Are you absolutely sure?
Joe, first of all, let me go back to the energy, if I can talk about that.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. No, I know, but that's because of $80 oil. That's not from it. That's in spite of Biden.
We're the number one producer, Joe. We're producing more energy.
In spite of Biden.
We're producing more energy than anybody in the world. We're number one producer. 38 trillion cubic feet of gas, 4.7 billion barrels of oil last year, and we're on track to do it again. And we're investing in new technology, too, as far as small modular reactors and nuclear we're bringing back. Hydrogen's coming on. My problem with the Biden administration is we wrote the energy portion of the bill. I know what it's doing what we wanted it to do. We're having a hard. They're trying to basically implement a piece of legislation that they didn't pass. I said, just stick with the bill that we passed, that you signed, the IRA, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Those are bills that are bringing investments back, but you can't overreach and basically not bring manufacturing back because you're allowing China to still compete unfairly with people trying to get up and run.
They pulled the rug out of you. They pulled the rug out from under you on the permitting too.
I'm fighting. No, it's a little slippery right now, but I'm still fighting it, Joe. We're going to win this thing.
Okay. As an outsider, maybe you do it. You didn't talk about it. You totally avoided the other thing I asked you in terms of characteristics.
Okay, the other thing I was trying to kind of slide through that one too, Joe, and you caught me.
Yeah, both of them, yeah.
No, hey, Joe, on that.
You don't have to answer that. We won't get anywhere.
It's a bad situation. The bottom line is they're being scrutinized every way humanly possible. I believe in the rule of law. I believe the rule of law, basically, no one's above the law, whether it be the President Biden or former President Trump or anybody else. And with that being said, if he has done something and benefited unfairly by that, used his office, I know one thing. I went into blind trust immediately, and I wanted to make sure that I did not have any tentacles as far as where I could benefit from.
Heather, can I ask you, I want to just pivot the conversation for a second, because when we came on the air, we were talking about Walgreens.
Yes.
And you are a healthcare expert. You've been talking about healthcare and how to fix this country for a long time when it comes to healthcare. But how would you make sense of these headlines this morning about Walgreens? Because I think a lot of Americans are waking up thinking, oh, my goodness, my store, the store closest to me may be closing.
Right. I think it's the issue that's been an issue for now decades. It's transparency. You have no idea. It's the only industry where you walk up to the counter to purchase something and you have no idea what it's going to cost, and it costs something different every month. We're the best shoppers in the world, and we cannot shop for our pharmaceuticals. The Walgreens, the biggest difference between Walgreens and CVS is CVS owns one of the largest PBMs in the country, pharmaceutical benefit manager, and Walgreens doesn't. They've had a standalone model, and I think we're seeing, unfortunately, what a PBM will allow you to hide or give you cushion that without it you don't have.
So when we saw CVS buy the PBM, did you look at that and say that's good for the country or it's bad for the country? Meaning that should the PBMs be part of it, or you're saying 100% not?
100% not. I think that vertical integration made it more opaque. So we didn't have transparency when PBMs were standalone. And if you'll remember back early 2015, 2016, I continued to talk about the fact that we need to be able, we have $1 trillion industry that no one on Capitol Hill knew what it was or what they did, and they still barely do.
Let me speak on
It's a
that 1 second.
problem.
Please.
PBMs from the standpoint, now the Senate and Congress are starting to understand their tentacles and how basically they're jacking prices up. If we could, as Medicaid and Medicare, if we could all buy into the VA system, let VA do all the buying, because they bypass PBMs, we get the lowest prices possible.
Which candidate do you think is better on health care?
I'm not sure of either one of them from the standpoint of getting a handle. Who's going after you? Either one talking about PBMs?
Neither.
We're not talking.
No,
They should.
none of them.
Transparency for healthcare.
PBM has no value to the process, no value to the cost and what you're spending, and basically getting the prices down. Nothing.
Okay, real quick before we go, who do we think, or who do you think former President Trump would choose as his VP? And who would you like?
Well, I know all the people that I don't know Doug Burgum as well. Okay, I'm partial to governors. Okay, I'm partial to anyone who had executive experience. They've got to make a decision. A governor can't be a Democrat or Republican. Governor's got to be governor of their state. Okay, and they've got to make decisions every minute of every day to make life better for their constituents. So, I think the dark horse might be Doug.
And do you think there's ever an opportunity truly for an independent third-party candidate?
We're going to make sure that happens sooner or later.
I think one thing on Americans Together, the reason we started it is we have got to change the incentive structure for politicians. Right now, it's completely out of whack. And just like a corporation, the incentive structure drives performance. We've got to change the incentive structure, and that's what we're going to try to do and build a center for the center of American politics.
People are unhappy with the choices they have going into tonight and going into the election in November. The process, the political process we have, prevents us from having more options. That's got to change. But I want to say this as an American, me being a U.S. Senator for 14 years, I don't care who's elected. I'll make my choice, and my vote is one vote. But as a senator and as an American, I want to make sure I do everything I can to support the person. That orderly transfer of power, or if it stays where it is, I'm going to do everything I can to make them the best president and make all of us proud of America.
Senator Manchin, Heather, thank you guys for waking up early and being with us, and we'll all be watching the debate tonight.
Yes.
Thank you both.
And that is Squawk Pod for today. Tomorrow on our rundown, debate night in America the morning after. We'll have analysis and follow up from the first 2024 matchup of President Biden and former President Trump. Be sure to listen. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Becky will be back tomorrow. Please tune into CNBC at 6 Eastern or listen anytime you want when you follow Squawk Pod, wherever you get your podcasts. That's it. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.